So folks, and welcome to the March 25th Board of Selectmen meeting, budget meeting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do in fact have a quorum. Thank you so much, folks, for moving around schedules and making sure we could get in here. Adjustments to the agenda.
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Okay. The next item reads final review and vote. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get such a kick out of that. So the upside, ladies and gentlemen, is that this year we've had a working group that has gone through a lot of this for us. They've made their suggestions to us, so I hope everybody had the opportunity to look at those. However, this is the Board of Selectmen's budget, and it is incumbent upon us to roll with it from here. So let's begin in my note with Selectmen's budget. Page 1. I'd like to, as we hit each, I'll just ask for any questions, any input, and then if anybody wants to entertain a motion to accept the amount, please do so, okay? Are there any questions or any input from the board on the Selectmen budget?
None. Motion to accept Selectmen's budget.
All right, motion by Wendy. Second by Jim. I do, sorry, the next time I'll preface that with the manager and committee numbers are the same. So in this case, it doesn't matter if we select one or the other in the language of the motion, but in some situations it may be different.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Okay.
And you could create your own.
Yes, we certainly could. We certainly could, but I just wanted to make sure I made that obvious that manager and committee may not necessarily match throughout the document.
Yeah.
And of course, it is our budget. And our numbers could be entirely different.
Gotcha.
All right, so there was a motion by Wendy, second by Jim. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Well, that is unanimous. Moving on to the administration. Any questions, comments, input on the administration budget?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Under the committee's recommendation for software, 35-09, from manager's suggestion for $500, it went up to $1937.96. I just wondered if it was just new information that was presented.
Okay, so under page 6, contract services 3509 software, managers recommended is 500, committees recommended is $1,937.96.
I can answer that. So.
Thank you.
Since the budget committee has voted on the administration budget, there has been a change. The town manager changed his recommendation. It is decreased to $500. So budget committee will have to vote to decrease that amount to $500.
Oh,
So the recommended amount per the town manager is 500 because there was a decrease in software cost, or?
Because the software that we had budgeted for previously is not interfacing well with Trio Web, and we're having issues with it. The 500 is for a more basic time clock system.
Like a motion to accept the administration budget with the town manager's recommendation.
There was a motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Motion was Jem to accept the administration budget, town manager recommended numbers. Joe, do you want the amounts read out in the,
Madam Chair, if the board wouldn't mind, we would prefer, Tracy would
Yeah.
prefer.
the numbers?
Amend
Sorry.
my motion for the town manager's recommendation of $333,755.
Second.
Alright. It's a motion, amendment to the motion, amendment to the second. Any further discussion? Although, yes.
I have one,
Yeah.
and this is in multiple categories. The differential between merit increases and retention bonuses that we'll see in many departments. I just wanted to make it recognized that that is, it's a difference between the manager's recommendation and the committee's recommendation.
Madam Chair, if I could clarify just a little bit.
Yep.
The merit amount in 0110 is intended for management to be able to disperse amongst non-union folks throughout the year. It amounts up to 5,000. Actually, the manager line is 1,500. What I was looking for, the budget committee is looking for 5,000. In my proposal, there is an amount for retention bonuses. So the way I configured that was $2,500 at the end of year 2, $5,000 at the end of year 5, and $10,000 at the end of year 10. That is in the manager's proposal, but as I recall, it's not in the committee's proposal.
Yes. Cindy.
So, yeah, just to clarify, the budget committee discussed the importance of merit increases. That the town manager have the ability, that's why we increased it from 1,500 to 5,000. We felt that merit increases were linked to performance. It's recurring year after year. If this should be something that continue, and it's at the town manager's discretion for non-union folks. The retention bonuses we reduced significantly. With the town managers recommended $2,500 after 2 years. We don't feel 2 years is longevity or retention. The committee felt that it was more just getting to know your job and improving your performance. So we began the retention bonus recommendations at 5 years. So at $500, which is a one-time bonus, $500 after 5 years, $1,000 after 10 years, and we went beyond that because $1,500 after 15 years, $2,000 after 20 years, and 25. So that was the budget committee's unanimous suggestion, our recommendation going forward.
Thank you so much for that input, Cindy. So there's a motion and a second on the table. After obtaining that additional information from Cindy as a member of the budget committee, I haven't noticed that you guys didn't approve any dollar amount for this particular budget line yet either. Is that still accurate?
No, we have, our recommendation, has been voted on and approved. So the 333, 536, 96 under committee was a unanimous approval.
I'll call for a vote on the motion. The motion is to accept the town manager recommendation, $333,755 for the administrative budget. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's 3-2. Right. What? We could have, if we had voted down that particular motion, but since it was not, that's where we are. But yes, there is wiggle room, certainly is. All right, assessing budget.
Motion to approve the assessing budget, $81,666.
Motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Moving into finance. There's a different figure under manager and committee.
Finance budget, with town manager recommendation, $116,909.
Motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Any discussion?
What do we want? We've got the same, sorry.
This is the same
Exactly
issue,
same scenario.
again.
Want to wiggle room it? Figure out kind of in between and whatnot, so.
Well, the problem with that, Sam, is there's a motion and a second on the table.
Okay.
I mean, if you,
No.
yep, no, under discussion, if you would like to discuss where you'd like to see the wiggle room.
The recommendations on.
I was inclined to take the budget committee's recommendations as far as retention bonuses. So I'll just state that. And then the merit conversation was merited. And a very thoughtful process. I believed that the budget committee went through a very thoughtful process when dealing with this, and I thought the 2-year retention bonus was or the retention bonus schedule was a little aggressive myself, but
I felt that too, and I like the merit program, but my personal preference would have been to do 2 years at 500 instead of 5, and then carry on that way. Just, I know it's a new animal now, but I mean, we can't vote on that.
Right, I'm concerned that we already voted on something previous, how do we change that throughout the rest of?
I know, we should have had discussion about that,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's now where I get uncomfortable, because I feel bad that I don't want to give anybody else different than what we already did. So,
Could we vote to revote?
I was gonna say, I like what Joe did with the retention bonuses, but I'd be willing to throw it out the window if we did a professional salary survey. And brought wages up to where they should be. I think that's part of the discussion. Retention bonuses are for those people that have been here for years. It's a thank you, but it's also in lieu of floor wages.
I would disagree about the in lieu of lower wages statement, but everything else I would agree with.
Well,
A
if we get a
salary
professional
survey
survey, we'll find out, I guess.
Well, and my concern with surveys, and I've said this vocally on numerous occasions, the problem with surveys is we are such our own beast that we can't get one that gives us a good apples to apples version of what we're looking for, one. And two, once you do a survey, there's an expectation that people will be brought up to, regardless of why that is up where it is. So those have always been my concerns when we do surveys.
And frankly, Rangeley is really, there's nothing like it in the state. I mean, I find that where we are as far as our, you know, seasonal tourism and the town itself, I mean, we are, there's nothing I've found that equals anything near to how amazing we are. I don't have to say that, but as far as comparing Carabasset or Bethel or Belgrade or Norway, whatever, I mean, there's just, it's hard.
So herein lies my, realize we have a motion and a second on the table, don't worry, I haven't forgotten that. Herein lies my thought process though, Wendy, I'd like that the whole starting with the 500 at 2 years. And then running, I mean, that was kind of what I had looked at when I was looking at the numbers and stuff.
That's when most people leave their job.
Right.
At 2 years.
Right, and this, I mean, this other, the town manager recommendations were just, I saw them as aggressive. And
Madam Chair, may I ask a question
Mhm.
of the, was the $10,000, Joe, and I know that there were some other ones, but I don't have that document in front of me. Was that for the department? That wasn't for the employee, right? Your retention bonuses?
Madam
To be
Chair,
parsed out to people in that department?
Madam Chair, the intent is for that to be employee specific, that is for an employee that's past the 10-year mark, the
Oh,
5-year mark.
One employee, okay.
Well, each employee that's passed.
Okay.
that mark.
I just didn't know, because I thought that I had heard something different, that's all.
And it is not the intent for these to be cumulative, no matter which direction it's taken, correct?
They are offered as one-time benchmarks, once an employee has successfully completed that year of service. So it doesn't happen on day one of the year, it happens on the last day of that year. That's a complete that. And it is offered as a retention bonus. And we have half a dozen non-union employees, some of whom will qualify for this, some of whom haven't met the milestones yet.
So given there's a motion and a second on the table at this point, and I think it's voted yes or no. And then perhaps additional discussion, but whatever the purview is of the board. Motion by Jim to accept the town manager's figure. The town manager's recommendation for finance in the amount of $116,909. Is that correct, Jim? Second by Ethan. All those in favor? All those opposed? That was another 3-2. My understanding of it. And the planning total. Questions or comments?
Budget, town manager recommendation, 53,736. Second.
Motion by Ethan. Motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? It's a 3-2. Town office building.
Motion to approve the town office building budget. $88,171.
Second.
What's that total?
Page 17 has it.
You said 88,171.
I believe that's what it said.
Sorry, what was that?
I believe that's what it said.
Perfect. Just asking for clarification.
Yep,
Thank you. Motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Public safety building.
Town office public safety building budget, in the amount of $48,870.
Motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Town clerk budget.
Town clerk budget, the town manager's recommendation, $78,917.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Ethan. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's 4-1. Property casualty budget.
Property casualty budget, in the amount of $67,661.
Second.
Motion by Jim, will be the Jim and Ethan show this evening, second by Ethan. Any discussion or questions?
Just a
Yes.
point of discussion. After this is budgeted, do we put insurance up to bid annually?
We do not.
No, I would recommend that we do. I've found that myself, that when you put it up to bid, you might actually find some really good value in other carriers.
We, sorry,
No, go ahead.
we use Bay Municipal for that. The reason, Wendy, I'm gonna guess what they would probably say to you, like at the water district. We've done this at the water district and no one
No one bids.
touched Bay Municipal
Okay.
as far, or they never had that I've seen, so that's probably why.
That is why, Madam Chair, it's a risk pool, which the benefit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's time for anybody really to touch that. And that's the short way to put it.
That's fine. That's good. Short's good.
Fire and rescue. Oh, sorry. All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, guys, that's what happens sometimes. Fire and rescue budgets. This one I'd like to talk about before we go jumping into a motion, since there's a significant increase and a request for an additional position. Wendy and Jim, I would invite either of you to offer some feedback to the rest of the board regarding what you heard from the presentation at the budget committee, if you don't mind.
Sure. Chief Bacon made a nice presentation. He shared the extensive area of coverage that he has to manage. He shared his typical work day and how hectic it was and busy. And also the potential position of jeopardy if there were overlapping calls in a particular moment. And he feels stretched. He said that we're lucky to have a fire chief such as him who actually likes putting out fires, because he does participate in active duty that way, as opposed to just being an admin. And he was concerned about the fire safety rating and the insurance rating that a lot of people are going to be affected by if we continue to grow and our department stays stagnant.
We also hit on the fact that it's not just fires that they respond to, obviously, it's all events. And that's been prompted by 911. It could be anything from a smoke detector to carbon monoxide to flooded basement. The amount of calls that they actually go out on is
That's
quite
right.
considerable now.
Any additional questions or feedback? Cindy, can I ask you, yep, sorry. That was a hand raise, so go ahead, fire away.
But you go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Cindy, it seems as though I recall you provided some information that would indicate that some of the numbers were in fact a little skewed at a previous budget meeting that I watched. Were you able to iron those details out? I know you guys asked for a little bit more information with
We
relationship
haven't had a
to.
quorum, so we haven't voted on the fire
On the fire.
department budget yet, except a couple of lines. Again, it would be the retention bonus, that we thought was was excessive, so we dropped that to 10% of the recommendation, but we haven't had a quorum, so not sure we'll have one tomorrow either, but I think the other information, I mean, the chief has no doubt presented great information. And he's required to keep, extensive records, it's just the nature of any fire rescue department. When we asked why there was a second firefighter proposed, we were told because the call volume had increased, and that isn't the case with the numbers that he presented us.
And that what was it?
That wasn't the case, the call volume had not increased.
I think during the meeting, he questioned, because Shelley had made that comment, and he said, no, I don't know what information you're looking at.
It was information he had presented us, from 2019, which is his full year as the fire chief, to 2023. And so there have been some up and downs over the years, about difference of 100 calls per year that have gone up and down, so there doesn't seem to be anything consistent at this point. I think, so like I said, we haven't voted on it, looking forward to having more discussion about the budget. I think one of the some information that I think the budget committee was looking for was more about scheduling. What would you do with, he talked about, 4 10-hour days, that potentially puts 3 people on a day. Is that needed? So just, questions are always good, just looking, because I know we've fielded some, from the public, just wondering why, so.
I got those numbers here. 21, it was 405. 22 went to 608, and that was high because of COVID, but 23 was still at 502. So even if you factor out the extra calls that they did during COVID, calls are definitely going up.
So it was about 500 last year, 508. So they've been pretty steady. So I'm just going by what the budget committee was told for the reason for the update, and that was the increased call volume, and the increase just hasn't been there since he's hired the first full-time firefighter.
I got a comment on that, because
Yeah.
when we talked to him in the meeting, he said before COVID, his calls were like 250 to 300, and now we're talking at 500, so it's a significant increase.
Yeah, I think
Over a short window.
his first year was 300 something. And then it went up to 408, and then it's hovered right around 500. Except for that, like you said, he said there was a couple of strange anomalies that one year where it was over 600, he had mentioned. But again, I think my point, Jim, and I get where your questions are coming from 100%, was the fact that, so he's had a full-time firefighter for is this year 3? I'm not, year 3, and so it was the increase, it's like, that's what the budget committee was kind of going at, it's like, all right, so there's been more need since the full-time firefighter's been on board, and the numbers just haven't shown that. So that's where the budget committee was coming from, like I said, more discussion to come, haven't voted yet.
Has there been maybe I heard rumors that there was a decrease in volunteers lately? Was that gonna happen?
We haven't been presented those numbers.
Okay, I don't, maybe I should,
No, he did mention someone getting ready to face out age-wise.
and that was not for that effect. That was that will happen.
And we welcome those numbers too.
Hi, on page 26 of the budget report there in the written text part about adding a full-time firefighter, cites NFPA standard that every department, be staffed with 4 firefighters and things like that, and then goes on that, 4 firefighters are required to enter into a burning building. And I'm thinking that volunteers qualify as those firefighters too, but he goes on to say that he's only asking for 1 firefighter this year, that we can add the others as we go along. So it seems to me the goal is to end up with 4 full-time firefighters. And, that standard, I don't know how, if the town has to, every fire department in the state of Maine doesn't meet that, just a small fraction of it. And so I'm just wondering, are we obliged to keep hiring another firefighter till we have 4 full-time firefighters and the chief? It just seems expensive to me, and as a taxpayer, I'm concerned we're headed with this. I don't know, just how efficient the utilization is, if there's been a study or whatnot to see, companies all the time are looking at, efficiencies and personnel and things like that, and how to cover things and get the job done, with less cost. I don't know how much the town does of that in different departments and things, but, if this is a trend to keep hiring another firefighter every year or two, I just say it, I think it needs to get looked into.
Anything further from the committee? I will be honest, I'm of the mindset that I want a little more information on this. Some of the language that he used, I understand the reason for the use of the language, but a minimum of 4 firefighters is required while performing interior structure fires. That can be done in conjunction with the full-time and our volunteer. Are we moving from a volunteer fire department to a full-time fire department? Because if we are, that needs to be looked at entirely different than just a request for another full-time firefighter.
So the paradigm, it's a few things to cover here. There are folks that are retiring. Some of those, as I understand, are aircraft certified. So the number 4, and I haven't read this NFPA probably ever, but I'm familiar with what that means. It's 2 people on the outside of the building, 2 people on the inside of the building. They need to be able to communicate and spell each other. As far as I know, they do not have to be, and again, I would want to check this standard before we swore by it. I think some of them can be volunteer firefighters. The issue is that not everybody on the volunteer roster is either trained or is interested in going into a burning building with an air pack on. You have to fit test annually, you have to be physically fit to do that, and you have to be prepared to do that. That is not everybody's ball of wax. Some people want to do traffic control or pump the truck or other things like that. So the concern is that if there is a burning building, you gotta have enough people to go in and enough people to be outside to spell those people that are in there, or save those people that are in there, so. That's where the number 4 comes from. As far as I'm concerned, this is not at this point a push to make this a fully staffed fire department. This is a way to make sure that we have trained folks available. The biggest anomaly here is our coverage area. Our call volumes are not that different than other towns that the chief gave us for samples, but our coverage area is like 20 times as big in some areas. We do have, and I hear it on the radio. I'm not one of those people that listens to the radio often, but when I hear a siren, sometimes I'll turn it on. And then inevitably, something's happening on the Boy Scout Road, and something's happening in Sandy River, something like that. So that does happen. The 410s are not, as I understand it, and speaking with the chief, they're not intended to run all at the same time. It's intended to have some overlap with some admin in the middle. That's the way I understand that at this point in time. And the anomaly in the call volumes, the 600 odd year was one of those rainstorm events where there were 60 or 70 calls a day, plus COVID also. One of those storms was anomalous. There, the call center was being staffed, or the command center, I should say. There were a lot of calls in 2 or 3 days. But the takeaway for me is the coverage area and the fact that not everybody signs up to be an interior firefighter, but if they're an employee, and that's a condition of employment, you are an interior firefighter.
So now that you've brought that up, how many of our volunteer firefighters aren't trained?
I don't have that information. I can get that for the board if you'd like it. Be happy to get that for you.
Yes.
Just some additional information that the chief shared, excuse me, was that he's working on a recruitment video. Because we don't have the numbers either. We don't know how many volunteer firefighters there are. We don't know who's aging out. I choose not to listen to hearsay, rather have the figures. But the chief said they were working on a recruitment video. It's been a number of years since that's been an approach. So we're looking forward to, seeing what the results are of the recruitment video as well, and we'll see what, where the budget committee ends up voting on this one.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, what's presented here for the manager's suggestion and the committee's suggestion, that represents, it doesn't represent a third firefighter, correct, or does it?
I believe my number does.
Yours does. So if you take the compensation, it's $213,000 compared to 209. I just don't see the big difference, because if you look at the top of page 26, line 0101 salary and line 0102 wages, both the manager and the committee are exactly the same. So
we haven't voted. So what you're seeing is a mirror of what the manager's recommendation is.
Okay, that's
So
where
we
I
haven't-
was like,
We haven't,
okay.
yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up. The only thing we voted on, Wendy, we did vote on the 4% salary increase that the town manager recommended. And across the board, and that was across the board for non-union. The other, the other matters we voted on across the board were the, the retention bonus, and then of course we added why can't I think of it under administration? The
Meritocracy.
merit, yes, yes. So that's why you're seeing that same figure. is
Okay,
we
that
haven't-
makes sense. I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, the budget committee voted to approve town manager's recommendations of 4% increase in wages for non-union positions. budget committee voted to recommend changing the IPP from 40% to 70%
Yes.
for all non-union positions. And those numbers are reflected in their IPP.
Correct, Madam Chair, those have been updated to reflect. Any action the budget committee has taken to date is reflected in the budget that the board has this evening.
Yeah, I don't mean to confuse things.
And then the budget, no, I don't think it's confusing anything. I want to make sure I state it out for the record. The budget committee voted to recommend changing 457 matches to a tiered based on years of experience.
And, yeah. Yeah, what the town manager had recommended was 10%, 457 match throughout for all employees, and the budget committee felt that a tiered approach based on how long they've been employed was a unanimous vote for budget committee.
Yes, Mark.
On the departments where the budget committee hasn't made a recommendation yet, can you folks vote to pause on that or wait till you get their recommendation so you could have a more thorough discussion before you go one way or the other?
I honestly
Do you have
believe,
enough time for that?
well, we need to make time, whether we have it or not, we need to make it. This is a very serious subject. And I honestly believe that I may have started off the meeting and shorted everybody in the communication, because without considering these things that the budget committee voted to increase, we're now increasing upon increase upon increase. We're now taking numbers and I'm not going to use that word that was coming to mind. Bastardize them at best.
Yeah.
We've made a mess.
You
It's,
know, you've got a hard job.
yeah, you
Madam
do.
Chair, you could, I mean, if your pleasure, you could go back to that first vote and have a discussion, you know, retract it. I mean, I think.
Well, I'm not
that's
sure
okay.
what level, there's where I get a little shaky on the actual steps in the process. When there's an approved motion on the table, I'm not sure what mechanism we have in place.
Madam Chair, it would be a motion to reconsider.
And my concern is that without all of us looking at this first and then looking at the numbers we were presented, we've done a huge disservice all the way across the board. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. If everybody feels like keep moving, then that's certainly, but I would make a motion to revisit. Beginning with. Wherever all of this comes into place. So where's the first one? Administration.
Not to speak more than I deserve, but I think a motion to reconsider technically has to be, the motion that was made to reconsider it has to be made by
The person who
somebody
made the
that
original
voted in
motion.
the affirmative. Okay,
That's what I thought.
okay.
Thanks, Mark, for confirming that.
Correct.
So did anyone who voted in the affirmative wish to vote to revisit?
Point of clarity, administration total budget amount, is that the one you're talking about right now?
Yes.
Because the selectmen total budget, the first item we voted on was not an issue. It didn't have any stipulations
There
that
was no
go to.
no
these-
IPP, no 457, no 4% increase. We needed to go back to where wages first became a factor.
do we need clarity? I mean, I voted yes on that. I mean, I want to make sure that everyone on this board feels comfortable with the vote, because if there was some confusion, that's not a good thing. You know, but if we're secure in that, I mean,
And if everybody's secure in the vote that they've already presented, but I'm going to tell you that based on having the reason for my no was having this information in front of me from the board, from the budget committee. They
I
had done the 4% increase.
understand that, but
Yeah.
wouldn't that 4% be included in these totals that we're seeing? So if we were comfortable with those numbers, we're comfortable with the 4%, correct? Unless it's,
We were comfortable with that line of that budget.
yeah,
And
but I mean, it's not anywhere, it would be in the total as well, correct, for the department? Right?
yes,
Madam Chair, I believe, pretty confident that the 10% that I initially recommended for 457 is what's in the manager column. The IPP that I originally recommended is 40%. That hasn't been changed in the manager's column. Just want to put that out there.
so your manager column does not reflect the budget committee recommended changes.
That is correct.
And the totals of those two on a lot of these department budgets are off by maybe a couple $1,000s at the end of the day, the bottom line. It's not a really huge monetary difference. It's really what mechanism is getting you there.
Right, but there's what's not clear. What mechanism is getting us there? That's what's not clear. So anything that the budget committee recommended or voted on should be on this list. Selectmen assessment. I'm not seeing administrative.
That wasn't on there.
Yeah, that's not on
that's
this
that
sheet.
333,755 number.
So the discrepancy in the bottom line between the manager and the committee recommendation. Joe did not increase the IPP. Joe did not do the 457 match tiered. But there is a suggestion from the town manager on the 457 match.
That increase is 10%. My proposal to the board is 10% because that is very similar to what the town pays folks who get man posts.
And your IPP is 40%. And your wage increase is what?
4%.
So that matches the budget.
In scanning this, Madam Chair, the differences from my proposal to the budget committees is the merit increases $4,500 to not $4,500, $3,500 different.
And that's going to likely be across all of the budgets.
Right. it's-
Your merit increase is much
Yeah.
significantly higher than,
No, his merit increases one line.
Right, that's for all.
One line in administration, and that he can apply to any employee.
now you see, I looked through this thing 8,000 times over.
It's the retention bonus that's in.
Right.
So because there was, the committee is not recommending the retention bonus that I am, instead they're recommending the merit
The
bonus,
merit.
there's 3,500. Yeah, there's a little bit of difference there, and of course, the software difference that the treasurer pointed out early in the meeting, another $1,400.
And we'll certainly agree to adjust that once we have a board. Which hasn't been a problem until last week.
All right, so have we cleared up the mud puddle? Does everybody understand what the difference in those two was? Let me guess, some of you knew it from the beginning, bullshit.
And
Well,
That's what I'm
I
calling.
went back to 2 revisions ago, and
That's
that's the
what
only
I'm
thing I saw that did different, so. We're stuck out like a sore thumb.
That's what I'm calling.
And
Yeah,
they
but it-
carry through
What
every
stuck out,
department.
Yeah,
well, the
exactly.
difference stuck out, but after the conversation, it didn't stick out anymore. It got muddied, it got murky, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So if everybody is good with their votes up to this point and feels comfortable that they're sticking with the 40% IPP, the 457 match of 10%, and the 4% increase with the ones that we've already motion seconded and voted on, that brings us back to fire and rescue.
If we hold off on this, we gotta have Chief Bacon come in tomorrow, to talk about it, correct?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, we have a public hearing.
Oh, shoot, also tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow, we'd have to have it, right? Am I correct in that assumption?
I thought we had one scheduled, don't we?
Wednesday's the public hearing, plus,
Right.
correct?
Oh, the budget committee meets
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we're supposed to have a meeting tomorrow, and you guys still have time. This is your initial presentation to the public, to get their feedback, so you still have time to meet.
It is, but I'd like to have all information, not going like we're doing tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Jesus.
Well, and herein lies the problem, this is our first meeting and I'm not comfortable voting on a lot of these numbers. Not like this, not out of the gate.
We're conundrum, aren't we?
Yes, yes, we are.
And if you guys are meeting,
Okay.
should we be there to call it a board of selectmen budget meeting and be able to vote as well with them and discuss, or?
On an emergency basis, the
Yeah.
board could do that. I would also offer, just off the cuff, that the intent of the primary public hearing in Rangeley is to be informational in nature. If you get feedback at the public hearing, so if you decide on something tonight, and you get feedback on it on Wednesday, that the public says, no, don't do that, then you have the right to, well, whether they do that or not, you still have the right as a board to change that prior to the final warrant being finished. So this is kind of I call it a soft public hearing. But when you have your second one that's statutory, everything is printed, people have already absentee voted at that point, you can't change anything.
Madam Chair?
Mhm.
I went through this and I noticed that, well, we figured out the administration budget, but it's the fire and rescue, police, parks and recreation that really don't have enough information on them. So maybe a recommendation could be that we hold off on those and then just go through the rest of the list so we can take some of these out of the way.
So you're,
So it would be
the ones that you saw as not having enough information.
mainly because they haven't had quorum in the budget, so
Yep.
the budget committee, so we don't have anything to analyze against the town manager's recommendation, if that's important. But also those are pivotal departments that need the most attention. And they're gonna make or break how this town functions this coming year.
And that was fire and rescue, police, parks and rec, and which one?
That, I also didn't see anything for planning, but I think that we have the planning number.
So they did vote on Parks and Recs. It was fire, police, and debt fund is what.
And debt?
And debt fund.
Right, I saw that too, but I didn't know, okay, yeah. And then do we have the numbers for the county tax and all that stuff too? Not yet,
Not yet.
okay, so we still have to
That's
do some
lately.
work too.
The county tax does not go on the warrant, and we might not find
Yeah.
that number out till July.
So well into
yay.
the new. Okay. I'm of the mindset to continue to move forward in whatever means. I would agree that fire department and police, we are not prepared to answer tonight. In my opinion, if that is not the majority opinion. The state. No, we did not. Um, Animal control.
So we're skipping over fire and rescue.
Are we have a motion, or do we have to do anything?
We can table it.
You can motion to table it if you want.
Motion to table the fire and rescue until further information, and police, or do that when it comes up.
They're right next to each other.
They are,
Move
okay.
back to that.
Fire and police. So further discussion.
It's a motion on the table. Do I hear a second? I will second it.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? So that was a 3-2. So what is the pleasure? Because this song and dance is getting old real fast. You honestly believe we have what we need in front of us to make that kind of decision on these two departments?
What I was presented with the chief the other night, I could have done.
I would agree. I mean, I sat and saw his presentation, maybe, because we were there, it's a little bit different for fire especially. And we talked about the police enough as well, so we have a plan for that. And we can go back in too, if something else comes up.
Yes.
So this voting that you do, what is the significance of that? Is this your final vote on these
No,
things?
no, it's just the vote to get it in front of the
This is just
public.
an initial vote, so how do you re-vote on them if at another meeting, say,
If they've already been approved.
after you've had public input and things like that, and somebody has decided to change your mind and actually give consideration to your constituents, how would you go about re-voting? I'm puzzled why you're voting on this stuff at your very first meeting.
I'd like to address that,
It's
'cause I
different than the normal process I've witnessed.
I am answering to my
Yeah.
constituents. I've had a lot of people that have talked to me about fire and police. So don't think we're up here willy-nilly just doing something off the cuff, Mark. You've been here, you know what it's like.
You haven't had a public hearing yet, I'm not saying you haven't heard it, gotten input.
Yeah, we haven't had a public hearing, that's right, but you hear people all the time, just like with the airport.
Not sure, action, but that's okay.
Well, and we can talk about that.
Madam Chair, would, if we go ahead and vote on these, if after a public hearing, we get input and consensus in the room, or what we've heard is that, the budget number is not compelling for the constituency, what type of motion through Robert's rules would be adequate to reconsider the vote?
It would be a motion to reconsider. that.
So just a motion to reconsider. So we could get something, a number in front of the public, because we are under a little bit of a time constraint here. And if that's not palatable for the constituency after public address, then we can go in and reconsider. I mean, I wanna do due diligence as well, but we have to move this along.
We shouldn't have been given this late in the
I
process.
completely
This is what
agree.
happened.
Yes, I
We shouldn't have been
completely
given this late in the process. We should have had all the time to have these discussions already. We should have already had all of this ironed out in front of us,
Mhm.
so that we were prepared to present our constituents with good, clear, valid numbers that we could support.
I agree with you.
But yet again, the cycle of being rushed into this budget process is happening. I am, however, a single member of a majority ruled board, so I will stand by what I said at the start of the meeting. There is a motion to be put forth, do so. Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the other piece that I've been asked, I mean, I roughly know what the school's increase is. I don't think we've been given I don't think, the budget committee hasn't received a percentage increase yet for the departments that are under municipal control. Certainly not the, not the county tax, not the, EMS or the other contract services, but that's something I haven't been able to answer, and we're, I'll reach out to Joe and get that information so the budget committee has it. Well, I have no idea what our percentage budget increase is, and that's just kind of one of the first things we should have asked for. I think at the last I talked with a school board member, they were under 4%.
To approve the fire and rescue budget with the town manager recommendation of $429,477.
motion by Jim,
Second.
second by Ethan. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? There's a 3-2. Anyone feel comfortable with the motion for the police department? Even though we haven't even openly discussed all of the figures, potential changes, what's been recommended by the manager versus the committee versus what the county numbers look like.
Funny, county's saying 3 officers, but budget committee doesn't want to support a 3rd officer for local people.
We haven't discussed the county proposal at all, Jim.
Must have read it though, right?
I honestly haven't read it in much depth at all. And it hasn't been on our agenda. We'll add it to our agenda, I'm sure. So I'm sorry, Madam Chair,
You're good, Cindy.
all right. So, and with that, where we haven't discussed the county proposal at all, we're not sure which school of thought to look at it through. I think when the town manager originally proposed or explained the request for 3 officers and the chief, this was the same request that was initially discussed in the prior year's budget. And I asked the town manager, he wasn't willing to bring it forth last year, so why is it being brought forth this year? And it was with the struggle of hiring police officers. And that struggle does continue, but the fact that it's, yeah, we're not sure how, you know, like I said, what is apples to apples, you know, with whether it's the 3 officers plus, plus the chief, or if it's the 2 officers plus the chief, that would be comparable, with the designated county coverage, so something we have yet to discuss.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Under public, the police department, rather, page 34, it's line 0505, workers' comp insurance. Those numbers for the manager's column and the committee are the same at $6,330, and the salaries and income are different. I'm just wondering if that is a typo or if it's just a flat rate that you get.
It's based on prior year.
It's, prior year, okay.
And can I clarify?
Mhm.
So if the town votes to go with the sheriff's department, you still have a budget amount, you can use this amount to go towards that contract. So it just, you need to be prepared for however the town votes.
Well, and I don't know, I mean, therein lies part of my concern, Rebecca, is we haven't had the opportunity to wash all of that out. County may not be the best option for us, but we haven't taken 5 minutes to figure all of that out. And now we're being forced to, our hands are being held to vote on a number that I don't think we're prepared to vote on, and that I certainly can't support, because I understand the argument or the premise of the statement, Joe, that you believe that your manager recommended numbers would be apples to apples if we went with county, but I'm not sure I understand why. Is that how Cindy?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that's-
and I may be
that's-
construing the 2 conversations
It's
entirely,
what
but.
I recall, that, you know, it was felt,
And also, I had the same question. It's what you proposed last year, but didn't propose last year, was this 3rd officer, so I don't understand why we're shooting for it this time. Especially with the lack of ability to fill the current department with 1 chief and 2 patrolmen.
Last question first. That is almost precisely why I think we need 3 and 1, so that folks are coming here, so you need 3 officers and a chief. You don't wanna go where you know you're gonna be worked, you know, it's gonna be slim, you're gonna have to work long hours with little supervision, if that makes sense, a little guidance. You need a chief, and you need enough people to cover all the hours in the week, 120. That was the answer to the last question. The first question you asked, I have not publicly made any comparison between this and the sheriff's office. I don't know where that came from. And what was the second question, Madam Chair? One in the middle.
It doesn't matter at this point, Joe. I was just looking for clarification as to why you were pushing for that 3rd officer, and you've explained your position on that. So we are no longer going to have a working chief? Is that the intent of the department moving forward?
I wouldn't say that's the intent at all. I would expect, you know, a chief executive officer of the police department would do a lot of the things that have typically been done in Rangeley, community policing, hopefully some level of SRO going forward. But I think it's critical to, I've always thought this, it's critical to make sure that we have the town is not putting so much pressure on leadership that they don't have time to do the things that need to be done. And I can tell you, I feel that's up in my office, which is why I'm sensitive to it. I wouldn't want to transmit that on to people who report to me. So I think if the town, and again, I will also say something that I, for sure I've said publicly, I am not projecting on you what I think you should do. This is your decision as elected folks to decide what you want to take to the voters. And I'm trying to help as much as I can with that. So I don't have a predetermined outcome yet, whether it's the SO, whether it's the PD, whether it's, you know, just do nothing, which I don't recommend. I'm just trying to help you get there. But I think if I'm going to manage a PD, I wanna make sure it's got enough staff and enough budget to make it work. That's where I'm coming from with this.
How much of this budget has rolled over from the last 5 years?
Know that off the top of my head, I would guess somewhere around 30 to 40%.
Jim,
Did we say in our last meeting, we're having a workshop, an executive session to talk about county at our next meeting on Monday? Did we not discuss that? I'm just curious. Are we having an executive session at our next meeting? to Talk about county budget out there? Talk
I
about the
think
county
you
proposal.
would ask.
I thought we
Yeah.
discussed it. If we're gonna discuss it, I would table this until we had that discussion amongst ourselves, because yes, we, like I said before, we kicked the can and danced around this thing, but we've never sat down and dove into it, so.
and that is honest, like I said, and I've been as transparent as I can be about this conversation, sometimes at the cost of my sanity. Because I know as much as everyone else that public safety is a #1 priority for this community. If for no other reason than the 45-minute distance from us to absolutely anywhere else. And I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is that 40% of a budget being rolled over for the last 5 years is inexcusable. And if we don't do something to fix that, that's on us. That's on us. And I want to make sure we have looked at absolutely every pitch, whether it's some mix of the two, whether it's trying to revamp our own department and put a full-time department back in place here. Whatever that looks like, but we have to have done this thoughtfully. And I don't think we're there for this department. That is just my opinion. Again, if anybody wants to motion, I'm a single member of a majority board.
I'll make a motion to table this discussion about the police department until after we have an extensive executive session discussing the status of leadership and all the components that we need to address prior to talking about a budget.
I'll second the extensive executive session.
There's a motion by Wendy and a second by Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Yes.
So, Madam Chair, I don't think the budget committee would plan on. We have not asked for the SO to be added to an agenda. Kind of looking to see where the select board, what avenue you take. People seem to be aware in the public that there is, there's an estimate, it's been mentioned publicly. I'm not projecting anything. So I'm just saying, the budget committee is probably gonna look towards, how you discuss and address the sheriff's office figures that have been presented. So that we can provide information to the public, because at this point I'm not giving anyone a timeline or any promises relating to that.
All right, folks. Thank you, Cindy. Moving on to animal control budget.
For the animal control budget, the recommendation is $7,400.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. You stole Ethan's thunder. Any further discussion? All those in favor, and that is unanimous.
Motion to approve the EMS budget in the amount of $101,955.
Motion by Jim, second by Sam. Any further discussion? Joe, just to verify, this is the. Does this one have a % increase on it? I'm so sorry.
91 to 101.
Yeah, this one.
10%, yeah.
It originally was 20% proposed at the committee level.
That's what I thought, okay. Sorry, that's why I was asking. I had a note that there was a different amount.
There was an update in the formula. The board decided on an update that kind of equalized it out. That's why it came down from the original proposal.
Perfect, thank you so much. All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Motion for the fire hydrant budget amount of $161,989.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Health officer.
Madam Chair, why are the numbers different?
That's just.
Yeah.
And the totals.
Going on here.
Trying to see where it popped in.
I was like, maybe they know somebody don't, because no one else asked.
You need to look at the number right
No,
above that.
the health officer. You're looking at the health officer number, not the bottom line number.
Wrong line.
The bottom line number is your public safety number in its entirety. Please don't vote. That's the health officer. I love the health officer, but please don't vote to give that to the health officer.
But with that, I make a motion to approve the health officer budget at $4,710.
Second.
Motion by Ethan, second by Wendy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Now that I think of it, I think I asked, I don't know if Cindy remembers, I think I asked the same question last year on the line. I don't know which one it was, but
Whenever you get to that
I think it
final
was the
page, it
same
confuses you.
question.
Yeah. It confuses you. All right, highway totals.
Make a motion to approve the highway budget amount $836,681.
Motion by Jim. Second by Sam. That's down. All those in favor? That is unanimous.
I have a question on the sewer.
Yes,
budget.
sir.
They have 100,000 in reserve this year, which went up from 30, I think it was.
That is correct, Madam Chair. The last year during the budget discussions, the intent was to earmark the 100,000 sewer reserve, but we had just under $70,000 from ARPA funds to use. So town meeting, the board put that question to town meeting to ask if voters would allow or authorize the use of that 69, whatever it is, just under $70,000 for SCADA, which is supervisory control and data acquisition, computer system basically for the plant. So in an enthusiastic way to help adjust the budget downward in other areas, that 70,000 was taken out of the 100,000 initially proposed for reserve. This year, it's back to 100,000. So that was part of the study that we did with Wright Pierce to help put away an ample amount of reserve for future projects, because the spray bond that we paid off, that's the one.
It's this year.
Yeah,
They had proposed 100,000 last year, but
but ended up with 30 plus the 70 from that pot of SCADA money to go towards, so. Yeah, the idea is to get back to 100, that was the original intent.
I'll make a motion to accept the sewer budget, amount of $465,542.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. Any further discussion, question? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Solid waste.
Motion to approve the solid waste budget in the amount of $489,751.
Motion by Jim, second by Sam. Any further discussion? I'm so sorry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Motion to approve the airport budget in the amount of $46,770.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Question about the park and recs. You said you guys all sell on park and recs, or, but I see there's a difference here. You have voted on it though?
Yes, we have.
Motion to approve park and rec budget, town manager amount of $306,326.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
second by Wendy. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's 4-1.
Approve the cemetery budget, $42,553.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Wendy. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Motion to approve the Rancho Comfort Station budget, amount of $20,021.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Will I jump from one to another? So
There was something
cemeteries,
else there, yeah.
public service director. Why is that not? I went from cemeteries to public service director. And then to the comfort station. You
Yeah.
just made a motion on the comfort
On
station,
the
correct?
Right, yeah, that's what I was looking for, because I didn't see the public works on the list.
Yeah, that doesn't exist in the budget anymore. It's only there so you can see the last.
A
couple of
placeholder?
years. Yeah.
Perfect,
That's what it's
thanks. I'm like, wait a minute, I have a tab. Sorry, motion by Jim, comfort station,
Second.
second by Wendy. All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Swanson Comfort Station budget, amount of $36,527.
Ooh, wait a second.
Yeah.
You
Wrong
need a
number.
second first.
No,
That's a total for both of them?
we're gonna let him change it. We're gonna let him find it and change it.
Oh, shit, yep, like to modify my motion to $16,506.
Second.
Nice.
Motion by Jim, second by Sam. Any further discussion? All those in favor, it's that bottom line. when you
I
get to the
know.
bottom page.
Always do it.
Needs to be
That is unanimous. So when you wanna look for culture,
You don't have to approve general assistance.
culture's
Culture's
first,
Oh,
and
is
then
it?
GA.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the culture budget, the amount of $16,020.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Sam. Any questions, discussion, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Now the GA.
Motion to approve general assistance budget, the amount of $2,000.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by
Sam.
Sam. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
It would take one, you just skip it in, how do you want to do it?
You guys don't actually vote on county board education.
Yeah,
Got paper bills.
yep, basically, pretty much.
Make a motion to approve the education budget, the amount of $4,152,700.
Sorry, we don't need that one either.
Oh, that's right.
I apologize.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I should have said that louder. Or maybe Rebecca say it louder.
It's all right. Jump in.
Yeah, so county and education, we don't actually vote on because they come to us the way they come to us, unfortunately. Essentially though, donation budgets.
We don't vote on
Are those
We
all
don't vote on the
warrants?
amount because it's all by petition, or do we? I mean, it seems kind of,
Oh,
it's
warrants,
by
right?
petition. They're on the warrant. I don't think we
You
have to.
typically don't make any
Yeah,
recommendations.
I didn't
Yeah.
think so.
It's just. the
It's just there for you to know.
Yeah.
Capital purchases.
Question on the capital purchases, Joe, you got $50,000 down there, budget committee was 0. Was it?
Where's that?
Oh, sorry, downtown revitalization, my bad.
I certainly can answer that question, Madam Chair, if you'd like me to.
Mm-hmm.
This was a really good discussion for the budget committee. I had initially proposed 50,000 to continue projects from the Economic Opportunity Committee. Some of the design work of projects that we're working on, and when the conversation developed, we decided that it makes sense to use TIF funds for projects like this. That's really the essence of the downtown TIF. So instead of raising and appropriating for this reserve, which the reserve has a decent balance in it now, it's around 50 or 60, I think. The intent is over the coming years, if there are projects like this that come up, instead of using the reserve fund, use the TIF project account, which does require town meeting approval. So that was why I didn't decrease it in here, but I would be okay having that decrease.
2-0.
I would be okay. Well, I would be okay with that, but the committee, I agree with that, what they proposed there.
Right, oh, so you're talking what they proposed for a total amount of
Yeah,
405,000.
I don't disagree with what they're proposing.
Make a motion to approve the capital purchase budget. Budget committee recommendation 405,000.
Okay, so that's the capital, I'm so sorry, dear. You went to capital reserves transfer out. It's okay. No, that 400, so there's a motion by Jim
But here.
to approve the
Yeah.
transfer, the capital reserve transfer out total budget in the amount of 405,000, correct, Jim?
Yeah, that's the one I was on there.
Yes.
Second.
A second by Wendy. Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Now, please go back up to capital purchases,
Yes.
Jim.
Make a motion to approve the capital purchases budget amount of $180,500.
Motion by Jim, a second by Sam. Any discussion or questions? This capital purchases budget is based on the capital plan, correct, Joe? I did notice, do we want to have a conversation about how frequently we're replacing vehicles? I think typically it's been our practice to kind of try and replace them at very low mileage. I didn't know if we could look at maybe projecting out a little bit higher in those. I mean, I don't think we need to trade in a vehicle that's got 40,000 miles on it.
There was some discussion at the budget committee,
Mm-hmm.
and the vehicle they were looking at, the police cruiser, the wrong one was listed. But I'm just,
Okay.
it's still warrants a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see us kind of hang on to them a little bit longer than,
Doesn't it have to do, excuse me, it doesn't have to do more, the train of thought was when warranty ran out and the fact that we haven't had an official town mechanic for several years.
That's part of it, Madam Chair. But most of my thinking on it is really when the vehicle still has some value left on it, and the warranty's part of it, but when there's still some value to sell that, and get some money back out of it. There's not a written policy on this. I think that was a suggestion that came up somewhere recently. But I can give you an example. So the two white public works trucks have about 40,000 miles on. I would recommend replacing those for probably another 5 or 6 years. They're aluminum, they're gonna last, they've been used fairly gently. Police cruisers run a lot. Typically, you see better returns on those after 5 or 7 years, I think. But certainly if we want to explore that going forward, as a policy discussion, I'm certainly welcome to that. But it's not a one size fits all, it's basically, you know, and another thing to think about too is when a particular vehicle, like, we have at least one of those in Public Works, begins to give you headaches, you know, it's time to think about getting it out sooner than later, because otherwise you're just gonna start putting major repairs.
And the public works ones need to be looked at totally different than the police cruisers, than the fire department, than the, I mean, there needs to be something in play that we know what we're looking at for each department. I mean, the mileage put on a public works plow truck is far different than what's put on a police cruiser in our community.
And that's taken into consideration. You know, when you put these together.
Are there, thank you, Madam Chair, are there departmental like SOPs for their particular vehicles? I mean, maybe it's within the department, like, you know, standard operating procedure where you go through the car and say, this is a good car, we're gonna keep it. Like analyze the car, I mean, get it tuned up, get a report or something every year.
I wouldn't say that there's a written SOP for that, but
Yeah.
that certainly is the practice.
Right, so it's being done anyway,
It is.
so the recommendation would come from the department, basically.
Typically does.
Yeah.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Transfer out health ride.
Approve the health rate budget amount of $5,500.
Second. Motion by Jim, second by Sam. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. I think I didn't look that way fast enough. Yeah.
Madam Chair, because this is a new item, I did not catch this the other day. The debt fund, the transfers out debt fund, we should talk a little bit about that. That's page 91. There's been some great discussion with the budget committee about this. Initially, when I came in a while ago, when this process started, I had a handful of projects that I was at that time thinking we would have to borrow for. Through that conversation that I mentioned earlier, we began thinking about TIF funds for these projects, and I found out from our attorney that these would be eligible. So those have, you don't see those there anymore. That's the 84012. That's there under my recommendation. I agree with the committee on this, that could be zero. And the three projects, just so you're aware. Number one is the Bostic Park Phase 1 improvements. It's about 270 off the top of my head. The other one is the fish screen rehabilitation there in Bostic, which is similar amount. Both of them come under what's in the TIF account, which is around $585,000. As I recall, it's about a $60,000 or $65,000 difference from the TIF account balance and those two projects. So those can neatly fit in there. They do both require town meeting funding, and Tracy and I have taken the first shot at writing that into the draft warrant of how to word that. Obviously, that'll have legal review before the voters see it. The other thing that I have talked about was getting scales for the transfer station. Initially, there were two parts to that project. One is an egress road that kind of circles around the asbestos landfill there and basically gives it a way out. We've got a huge brush facility out there now. We get a lot of brush coming in and out of that place. And if we have scales, we want to have, you know, a way for emergency egress, or just regular egress. So that's one project that I'm hoping at this point that we can do internally. I'm talking with Public Works about it. I think we can at least get that roughed in the summer without having to borrow any money, because it's, you know, it's something we want to do, but something we can do ourselves. The scales, what I'm proposing at this point is that we raise enough to buy the scales. So the scale set is about 180,000 with what's in reserve for the transfer station, which is about 117 plus the 50. We really need about another $13,000 to pull that off, just buy the scale, or know that we have enough money in the bank or in the reserve to pay for the scales. So those are the three projects that I initially thought that, you know, we might borrow for, but through some due diligence with the the budget committee, I think we can pull that off without having to borrow this year. One other thing to clarify, I don't have this in terms of pen to paper yet, but the road projects that we're talking about, public works, we're not gonna need to borrow or do anything with that. We still have $142,000 in the bank from that loan. And what we're gonna do is put that work out that we've talked about, that Earl and I've talked about, and do what we can with that 142 for this year. Part of that list is the transfer station road, if that works out that way. Country Club Road is on that list, Bond Street. I can't think of the fourth one off the top of my head. Bond Street, Country Club Road, oh, and a shim on top of Cross Street. Those are what we're thinking from that 142. That does not affect this budget. I just want to give that to the board for your information, so that you knew about that. That'll be right here eventually.
The engineer get a chance to look at that boat launch bid?
I haven't heard back from him yet. The principal of that company flew to France the next day, so we haven't been able to get in touch with that person. But yes, he is looking at it, and hopefully he'll have that back. The board will have that back by Monday, so we can know how that fits into things. If that, it's a good point to bring up, if that bid doesn't work, I think we would be very close to the total amount that we have in your TIF account. So we have to kind of make that decision at that point. This is assuming, you know, the low bid would be accepted. Did I miss anything? Anything you'd like to add?
So what generated the new cost center for it instead of, didn't this all used to be under? How was this all previously accounted for? Because this is a new cost center.
Good question.
And everybody knows I hate it when we do this.
So these items used to live within certain departments. So the sewer loan, for instance, would be, let me say, the public safety building loan would be in that department. Parks and Rec would be, you know, in Parks and Rec. The idea is to put all of these liabilities as debts into one place where we can see them. The only exclusion that I should note here is it's not really an exclusion, it's an anomaly. The road loan that is paid for through excise tax directly does not appear on this sheet. The rest of the debt appears here. It's a discussion, a recommendation from the treasurer, but also a discussion that she had with the auditor. It's a way that you can just take a glance and see, you know, what we owe, what to do.
And then my only other question, Joe, was 6527 on page 91. What's the difference between yours and the committee? Why is that? What is that?
6531, Madam Chair?
Nope, 6527. Am I looking at the right one?
Yeah, no.
Nope, 31, sorry.
Yeah,
My
that
line's not
is,
under it.
so 8412 was what I.
That's what you just broke down.
It's a good question, but I didn't give you the whole,
No,
the full money on that. That was an annualized loan payment.
Yeah.
For the projects that I thought we were gonna borrow.
So you're going to reduce, yours is no longer gonna have that number in it.
Yeah, I no longer. Yeah,
So that-
Number 0, right?
Yeah,
I
so
can
that
live
needs to
with
be zero. I'm only asking because you're gonna wanna vote on it and that number's not right. Well, you can use those. Nope, sorry. Really, I've had a long day.
So just, there was a lot of great discussion, about this, these three capital, projects. And it was $1 million for the three projects that was proposed originally in the budget to take a loan out for and pay, you know, and raise taxes to do so. And it's just, you know, it's been a pleasure working with this budget committee and the varied experience that everyone brings, and for, you know, for us to bring that line down to zero, and use our existing funds without raising taxes. I just want to state publicly, I just want to give kudos to the budget committee and the time they spent with discussing this for the benefit of the taxpayers.
Thank you so much. Is there a vote on this? This is,
There should be that, too.
yeah,
Make a motion to approve the debt fund. Amount of $888,129.
no, debt
No,
fund is
wait, what?
477,629.
Jesus. Bottom line coming.
That's how your bottom line.
I should
Amend my
yes.
motion, for the amount of $477,629.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
second by Sam. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Oh, I'm so sorry, folks. I am losing steam fast. I do not know why. Revenue projections, undesignated funds. Yeah. Nothing. Okay. Do we not have revenue projections yet, John? Where's that?
They won't be in this.
Okay.
And we may not have anything ready for this meeting.
So I did throw something together today. The revenue recommendation as of today is $1,405,450. And that is using $550,000 from undesignated fund. That number can change, but recent events, revenue sharing, we are not hitting our max amount in revenue sharing, which is cause for concern. And I hate to use, I mean, if it continues the way it has this last month, we could lose about $100,000
Over the course of the year.
over a course of a year. So my recommendation for undesignated fund is $550,000.
And the revenue sharing drops from 16,000 to
4,800, yeah.
From February to March.
And the reason for that is everything is still calculated the same, the state still, everything, it's just the pot of money that they take it from has reduced. So,
Okay. Debbie feeling super fantastic, like we got something done there. Let's move on to the TIF application.
So Madam Chair, you have an executive summary in your emails, it's a 3-pager. I do not have the final application yet from the developer, I do have the draft, which is about 80 pages long. This will be an agenda item on April 1st. What to think about. And because like, the only thing I guess really to think about right now, it's in your draft warrant. It's a very draft warrant, but thank you, Tracy, for putting that together. There's a question that's highlighted in yellow, CEA, TIF assistance application. Because that would eventually take funds from TIF account, it would require town meeting approval. No action is really in order tonight for this application, just to, I want to let you know that we have that application, we have the summary. I've asked Emily from Freddie to be here on what they talk about. And if there are any questions, you know, can you let me know tonight? I told her I was gathering questions beforehand, try to get those to her.
Does anyone have any questions for the attorney regarding the credit enhancement agreement application? Does anybody feel comfortable enough asking questions about the credit enhancement agreement application? I'm gonna be 100% honest. The credit enhancement agreement stuff in the tip. Never mind, I'll leave my comment about the tip out of it, but why did we do this to ourselves? Okay. Everybody's had the opportunity to flip through the draft, yada, yada, yada. It's not really on the agenda, but I just figured I'd ask. Are we gonna have somebody to appoint to post it?
Right, that's what I was.
We're working on that, yep, we're working on that, first item, we just haven't confirmed it yet. So when that is finalized, you'll have somebody who's going to be constantly printed there.
Yes, Miss Rebecca?
Just in case I'm not at the selectmen's meeting when you guys discuss it, as finance director, I recommend you reduce what you are capturing for budget. Right now, we're capturing 100%.
Yeah, I don't, thank you so much. I don't believe there's a full need for capturing 100%.
No.
I think we can shoot really low on that one, actually. All right, Jimmy, I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned at 7:46.
Second. Bye. Thank you. Motion by Jim, second by Sam. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much, folks. I know this is kind of grueling and apparently I'm exhausted.